Thank you, thank you. Okay, so many of us in industrialized nations, we interact with a variety of computer and smartphone interfaces nearly every day. They help us get to work on time, order our dinner, take photos, and among other things, connect with others. Now, no doubt this tendency started with the proliferation of personal computers, but with the widespread adoption of the smartphone, especially the iPhone, and its appeal to attractive and intuitive design, our interaction with user interfaces has become nearly inescapable. Parents and grandparents never tire of reminding us of how younger generations are quote-unquote glued to their phones, yet those very same parents and grandparents can be found awkwardly scrolling through Facebook or some other app. Now, the immense benefits and pleasures of these devices notwithstanding, my work argues that everyday interactions on tantalizing user interfaces threatens our practical rationality, by which I understand our reasoning about our own desires and our capacity to deliberate both with ourselves and with others. In the dissertation, I intend to draw upon Aristotle and contemporary philosophers inspired by Aristotle in order to develop this notion of practical rationality and a philosophical framework to evaluate user interface design and experience. Now, within the industry of user interface design and experience, designers have been increasingly concerned with moving from designing for users and instead opting for what they call human-centered design. But a clear understanding of the ethical foundations of what they mean by human-centered design is still at a nascent stage. Now, in philosophy, we have been rightly concerned with the ethics of artificial intelligence, the ethics of surveillance, and the ethics of algorithms. But very few philosophers have examined the user interfaces themselves which these devices and algorithms rely on. It is the interfaces which are attractive and keep us using the apps, not simply the complex code which produces algorithms. Now, I hope to fill this gap in both industry and philosophic context, and I believe the time is ripe to do so, as we have seen with recent developments of whistleblowing at Facebook, as well as congressional concerns over dark patterns, which are tricks in user interface design that nudge users into making decisions which benefit company profits over the person using the product. Finally, in the dissertation, I argue when so much of our social and personal activity is mediated by predetermined, limited, and simplistic interfaces, we are liable to treat what's left of the offline world as if it were equally limited, simplistic, and predetermined. Ultimately, I worry that the habituation created by user interfaces will further entrench a culture of immediate and easy consumption over the complex, difficult, and at times boring reality that we live with. Thank you.
Questions for Christopher? Questions? Yes, Dr. Hartnett.
So thank you. So would you say that the influence, which has a greater influence, the qualitative or the quantitative in terms of how many things that we're seeing, or the nature of the interface that we are seeing?
Great question. It's hard to pick either. Now, I tend to think that the presentation is crucial. I mean, I think of it as like if you were served a dish that was wildly unattractive, even though it tasted great, you probably wouldn't go for it, or less people would. And so I think first and foremost, you need the front end part. You need to make it look good before we end up spending as much time consuming so much information.
All right, thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.